Good morning, Valley. Today on Valley por Vida, we're talking all about a special health luncheon event in Brownsville that's probably got all the answers that you're looking for regarding your health plan. We're also diving into Alzheimer's disease and dementia, the differences and coping mechanisms for both. We've got details on imposter syndrome and how it may be affecting your mental health, plus so much more. There's a lot going on, so don't go anywhere. Valley por Vida starts right now. Hi there and welcome back to Valley por Vida. I'm your host, Danielle Banda. Well, did you know that 1 in 3 seniors die each year as a result of Alzheimer's disease or another dementia? And that's a related illness. And according to Alzheimer's Association, it's estimated that more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's in 2021. While this disease continues to increase in prevalence and severity in our society, it's still quite misunderstood in many ways. For both those struggling with it themselves or those with loved ones, we're always looking for answers and just guidance on how to identify the key symptoms, behaviors, and solutions. So we went ahead and spoke with a behavioral expert in the field of Alzheimer's disease to learn all about overall health and well-being coping mechanisms. Go ahead and take a look.
I'm Lisa Skinner, and today I'm here to talk about what it's really like to live with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. People ask me all the time, what's the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? So I'm going to explain that to you so it's clearly understood. Alzheimer's disease is a specific disease. It's a brain disease. Dementia is not actually a disease. It's an umbrella term that's used to describe the symptoms that are caused by various brain diseases, and there's actually over 100 of them that cause dementia. So when you think about having the flu, and let's say you go to your doctor and the doctor says, what brings you in today? And you start describing how you feel. You have a fever, you have a terrible headache, you have body aches and chills and an upset tummy. Well, you just described all the symptoms that you're experiencing. And then your doctor, hopefully, will use that information to make a diagnosis. So keep this in mind when you hear the term dementia, because it's really the bucket of all the symptoms, and there are a lot of them, that are associated with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and frontotemporal lobe disease and all the other brain diseases and neurological diseases that cause dementia. So Alzheimer's disease is the one that we hear of the most. It's the most common brain disease, and it actually affects so many individuals and families. Just in the US, according to the Alzheimer's Association today, there are approximately 6.2 million people living with Alzheimer's disease. That's just Alzheimer's disease. That doesn't include the other diseases that also cause dementia. Because the baby boomer generation is aging now, by the year 2050, the Alzheimer's Association is projecting that that number is going to increase from 6.2 million people living in the US to between 13 and 14 million people. So we're looking at our numbers doubling in less than 30 years. That's pretty compelling. Unless, of course, we find a cure. And so far, they're not even close. So I think that we're probably looking at another worldwide crisis in the next 30 years, because the numbers that I just quoted are people living in the US with this disease. Does not include people worldwide. So it's going to impact a lot of people and a lot of families. And there's a lot of things that people are unaware of. There's a lot of aspects of living with this disease that are unknown. And that is where my expertise comes in. I've been a behavioral specialist for over 25 years, but my experience goes back close to 45 years when I was a teenager and my grandmother started displaying some pretty strange behaviors. As it turns out, she had Alzheimer's disease. Back then they called it senile dementia. But she would talk about birds living in her mattress, and they would come out at night and peck her face. And she talked about rats running along her walls. And I would go visit her, and she would talk about the men who broke into her house and stole her jewelry. But as it turns out, she put it someplace and couldn't remember where it was. And in her mind, she believed that she was being robbed. So all of these different false beliefs emerged, all of these different personalities emerged. And that was really my first experience with Alzheimer's disease. Since then, I've had 7 other family members afflicted with one of the diseases that causes dementia. 5 are blood relatives and 3 were through marriage. So I've had experience with this from both sides of that fence. I've experienced it in my family. I've helped care for some of those family members. And I also chose to do this professionally. And one of the reasons that it was important to me, first, having my grandmother afflicted with Alzheimer's disease had a huge impact on me because I was very close to my grandmother. And I carried that with me through to my adult years. And when I was in college, I decided to pursue my degree in human behavior because I've always been so fascinated by what makes people tick, what makes people act the way they do. And I kind of accidentally stumbled on a job as a counselor in an assisted living facility, memory care, and that really was what launched my career helping families, because I had been in their situation before and I knew exactly the frustrations and the mysteries that go along with this disease.
Lisa navigates the heartbreaking challenges of having a loved one diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or other dementias in her recently revised book, Not All Who Wander Need Be Lost. And you can get more information on this as well as more tips to keep in mind by visiting her Facebook page. All right, well, all the experience moments of self-doubt. We all experience moments of self-doubt, however, where we feel as if we aren't enough or we weren't cut out for the endeavor that we're on. But for some, that feeling goes much deeper than a brief moment of internalized fear and doubt. They feel as if they're a fraud, doubting their abilities and their accomplishments. In this case, you may struggle with something called imposter syndrome. But what exactly is this and what are the symptoms? How can we cope? Well, we went ahead and spoke with a grounding expert and energy medicine specialist to learn more. Go ahead and check it out.
This is Amelia. I am so happy to be here with you and be with you, Danielle. Again, it's great to see you. So today we're going to be talking about something that's come up. I think it's getting kicked up because of all the stress that we're under. And it's called imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but imposter syndrome is when we are kind of stuck in limiting beliefs. And I know limiting beliefs come up all the time, but this is a little bit different. Well, limiting beliefs tend to be deep-rooted beliefs that keep us from believing that we're good enough. Something, I'm not good enough from a performance standpoint. I'm not good enough like in work setting. I'm not smart enough. I'm not okay. I'm not lovable. I'm not feeling like I can participate with my friends at the same level. And imposter syndrome tends to take those limiting beliefs a little bit deeper. So I want you to think about, there's a degree of limiting beliefs that comes up in any new situation, right? You're in a new job. Of course, you don't know what to do. You're going to feel somewhat like, I'm not good enough. Can I really get through this meeting? Can I really participate at the level that the other people on my team are? Sure, that's normal. That's about you haven't had experience and you haven't had the training yet. imposter syndrome goes a little bit deeper. It's more of like a deep-seated I am not enough. And it comes from how we're taught, usually in early life, when maybe there were casual comments said in the home. And it can show up like, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of being in a meeting where you have so much to say, and then someone comes in and says, okay, Amelia, it's time for you to talk. And you just stop, something curtails inside. It also shows up in terms of looking like a perfectionist. We can kind of like overproduce and try to really control every variable in our life because we deeply think I'm not good enough, but I'm not going to show anybody that. So this can show up in that way. Another tip, and I would just put this out, sort of in any spectrum or conversation of wellness, but there might be times when these feelings of not enoughness begin to get big enough that they occupy many spaces of your mind, many moments of your day. And so I would be aware of that, as you go through periods of introspection, and just notice if you're starting to feel really down on yourself or kicking up the self-critic, to level 150, when you're really starting to move over that line of, maybe it's just casual negative self-talk, I'm not good enough, to going over to the place of I'm pathetic, I'm really deeply disparaging thoughts that kind of run the circle of our mind. I think this is a good time to reach out to somebody to help interrupt those. Just as we're little children learning, we learn by reflection. So having somebody to reflect back to you, to talk with you, to work with you through some of these thoughts if they're taking over, I think it's always really important to remember there's some amazing practitioners out here, and we just don't have to do it alone. Well, I've really enjoyed speaking with you this morning. I want you to just be mindful of the goodness that you are and the happiness that lives inside of you. I think taking a moment, even right now, and just thinking some good thought about you, and let that be your mantra for today. And know that if you want a little more information about imposter syndrome, mindfulness, or grounding, you can find me at ameliavogler.com. I have a free grounding class at ameliavogler.com/grounding.
Amelia's top 4 tips on how we can overcome imposter syndrome include offering yourself the space to reflect on some of your core beliefs, offering yourself gifts of self-love and kindness, giving yourself messages that are gentle and loving, or even complimentary, and of course keeping in mind that your inner critic may sometimes need the guidance of a professional. Now you can feel free to visit her website for more information on overcoming imposter syndrome, as well as tips in grounding and mindfulness. All right, well, it's time now to take a commercial break, and then we've got to look at your local weather updates. But be sure to stay tuned because Valley por Vida will be back. And we'll have info on a special bingo luncheon hosted by our friends over at United Healthcare in Brownsville. Those details plus more coming up.